They taught you to chase money, but they never taught you to command the mind that creates it. They told you fortune lives outside you, in markets, in opportunities, in luck, in timing, but the truth has always been more unsettling and far more powerful. Fortune is not something you find. Fortune is something you become. And the world never hands wealth to those who beg for it. It responds only to those who have already claimed it internally. Every great fortune in history began long before the first dollar was earned. It began in silence. Indecision. In the unseen inner world where belief hardens into conviction. Before Edison lit the world, he lived in darkness, not just physical darkness, but the darkness of doubt, ridicule, and repeated failure. Before Carnegie shaped steel empires, he shaped his thinking. Before Ford built engines, he rebuilt his identity. And before Lincoln freed a nation, he freed his mind from fear of judgment, failure, and obscurity. Your inner world is the factory where all outcomes are manufactured. And if that factory is chaotic, doubtful, unfocused, and reactive, no amount of hustle will save you. You can work harder than everyone else and still remain poor, because effort without inner mastery is like pouring fuel into a broken engine. Most people live at the mercy of their thoughts. They wake up already defeated, negotiating with yesterday's failures, inheriting beliefs they never chose, reacting emotionally to circumstances they don't control. They think their problem is money, but their real problem is self-command. They want freedom, but they have never governed their own inner state. And so they remain busy, but never powerful. The first law of fortune is this: you cannot rise externally beyond the level of order you maintain internally. Chaos inside creates limitation outside. Clarity inside creates momentum outside. And mastery inside creates authority outside. Your mind is not just a tool, it is a magnet. It draws experiences, people, opportunities, and outcomes that match its dominant vibration. This is not mysticism. This is discipline applied to thought. Napoleon Hill understood this long before neuroscience could explain it. He saw that persistent thoughts become habits, habits become character, and character becomes destiny. The man who does not consciously choose his thoughts will live inside a mental prison built by others. Most never stop to ask, what am I consistently telling myself about who I am? Not what you post. Not what you say to impress. But what you repeat in moments of solitude. Because those whispers shape your future louder than any shout. A fortune-minded individual does not wait for confidence, they generate it. They do not wait for certainty, they decide. Decision is the birthplace of power. Indecision drains energy faster than failure ever could. The moment you decide who you are becoming, the mind reorganizes itself around that identity. Focus sharpens. Distractions weaken. Fear loses authority. This is why the wealthy think differently. Not because they were born special, but because they trained their inner world to obey direction rather than impulse. They learned to hold a vision long enough for reality to bend toward it. Walt Disney was bankrupt, mocked, dismissed, yet he carried a world in his imagination so vividly that eventually the physical world had no choice but to follow. Vision precedes victory. Always. But vision without belief collapses under pressure. Belief is not hope. Belief is emotional certainty rehearsed daily. It is the refusal to negotiate with doubt. Doubt will visit, it always does, but it does not get a vote. Those who build fortunes are not free from fear, they are free from obedience to fear. The inner world must be disciplined. Not suppressed. Directed. Left unchecked, the mind defaults to survival, comfort, safety, familiarity. But fortune is built in expansion, not comfort. Growth requires discomfort. And discipline is the bridge between intention and embodiment. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. It is choosing long-term identity over short-term relief. Every time you honor your word to yourself, you reinforce inner authority. And authority compounds. Soon your emotions follow your decisions. Soon your habits align with your vision. Soon your environment reflects your standards. Clarity emerges when noise is eliminated. The average mind is cluttered, too many opinions, too many comparisons, too many borrowed ambitions. But the focused mind is lethal. When Andrew Carnegie decided on steel, the rest of the world faded. When Rockefeller chose oil, distraction lost relevance. Fortune favors the mind that knows where it is going and refuses to dilute its energy. Purpose is the spine of inner mastery. Without purpose, discipline collapses. With purpose, effort feels inevitable. Purpose is not found, it is claimed. It is the decision that your life will stand for something. That your work will matter. That your growth will ripple outward. And once purpose is claimed, action becomes sacred. Not frantic motion, deliberate execution. Daily. Unseen. Unapplauded. The inner world must be trained to value progress over praise. Gratitude over entitlement. Learning over ego. Gratitude is not weakness. It is alignment. It keeps the mind in abundance, not scarcity. It reminds you that you are building with life, not fighting against it. And adaptability ensures survival. Rigidity breaks. Flexibility compounds. The world changes, the inner master adjusts without losing direction. Resilience is forged when failure stops being personal and starts being instructional. Every setback refines perception. Every loss sharpens strategy. The mind that learns faster than it bleeds cannot be defeated. And slowly, quietly, the inner world stabilizes. Thought becomes intentional. Emotion becomes fuel. Vision becomes inevitable. The outer world begins to mirror the order within. Because fortune was never about money. Money is just the echo. The real wealth is mastery. The kind that cannot be taken, shaken, or stolen. And when you master your inner world, the world has no choice but to follow. The moment your inner world stabilizes, something subtle but undeniable begins to shift. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. Circumstances no longer define your emotional state, they reveal how much command you've gained over it. Where others panic, you pause. Where others complain, you calculate. Where others quit, you refine. This is not arrogance, this is alignment. The inner world has been trained to lead. Most people never reach this stage because they mistake intensity for transformation. They consume motivation, but they never embody it. They feel inspired for an hour, then return to the same patterns that built their limitations. But fortune does not respond to emotion, it responds to identity. Who you are being daily determines what you are building unconsciously. The mind must be taught to think in decades, not days. Short-term thinking creates fragile success. Long-term thinking builds empires. Henry Ford did not obsess over selling cars, he obsessed over changing transportation. That scale of thinking reorganizes priorities. Trivial distractions fall away. Petty arguments lose appeal. When your inner world locks onto something larger than ego, discipline becomes natural. This is where patience becomes power. Not passive waiting, strategic endurance. The ability to hold faith without evidence. To keep executing without applause. To plant seeds in seasons where nothing appears to grow. Nature itself operates this way. Roots deepen in darkness before trees reach the sky. And so does fortune. The untrained mind grows bitter during this phase. It asks, why not me yet? The trained mind asks, what am I still becoming? Learning becomes a daily ritual, not an occasional task. You study not just information, but behavior, your own especially. You audit your reactions. You examine your self-talk. You notice where emotion overrides intention. This self-observation is not self-judgment, it is self-leadership. You cannot command what you do not understand. And slowly, your inner dialogue changes. It becomes firm. Calm. certain. You stop dramatizing obstacles. You stop romanticizing struggle. You treat challenges as systems to be solved, not stories to be suffered. This emotional neutrality under pressure is rare and incredibly valuable. Markets reward it. Opportunities recognize it. People trust it. Your standards rise. Not because you want more, but because you tolerate less. Less chaos. Less distraction. Less compromise with mediocrity. You protect your energy like capital, because it is. Every yes is now intentional. Every no is an investment in focus. Gratitude deepens here, not as a ritual, but as awareness. You see how far you've come. You see how much control you now possess. Gratitude keeps ambition clean. It prevents hunger from becoming desperation. And desperation repels fortune faster than failure ever could. Adaptability sharpens your edge. You stop clinging to outdated plans. You keep the vision, but you evolve the strategy. When doors close, you don't curse the wall, you look for leverage. This flexibility is not weakness, it is intelligence in motion. The strongest structures in nature bend before they break. Resilience becomes quiet. You no longer announce hardship. You no longer seek validation for perseverance. You simply endure, adjust, and continue. This silence is powerful. It signals confidence rooted not in results, but in capability. You trust yourself now, and trust is the rarest currency of all. The inner world begins to feel expansive. Calm replaces anxiety. Purpose replaces pressure. You are no longer chasing success, you are allowing it to catch up. Because you've already done the hardest work, becoming the kind of person who can sustain it. And here is the truth few ever articulate: wealth is dangerous in the hands of the unmastered mind. It amplifies flaws. It exposes insecurity. It destroys those who skipped inner discipline. But in the hands of someone who has mastered thought, emotion, and intention, wealth becomes a tool, not an identity. This is why the journey inward is non-negotiable. Why the inner world must be built before the outer world can last. Why fortune follows mastery, not desire. You were never meant to live at the mercy of circumstances. You were meant to command them from within. To think deliberately. To act decisively. To build patiently. To endure intelligently. To grow relentlessly. And when that inner world is fortified, when belief is unwavering, vision is clear, discipline is embodied, and purpose is alive, the question is no longer if fortune will arrive. The only question left is how large it will become.